Welcome to All on This Together. This is a podcast in both video and audio form celebrating public transport and stories about public transport from people who love it and hate it and love to hate it and blending that all together. My name is Emily Turner. I am a prolific public transport rider. I'm also a transport enthusiast and advocate for transport, and I've created this podcast just for people to have a chance to talk about their experiences with it. Each, fortnightly episode, I bring on a guest from the world of public transport or from elsewhere, and we talk about their experiences. For people listening to this, you don't miss very much by listening instead of watching online. That would be my preferred way to absorb podcasts anyway. The only thing you miss on really are my transport themed wardrobe. So today I have, you can't really see it past the microphone, but this child's underground map hoodie that has a broken zipper. So got it on discount. And the other thing you'll miss out on is playing Guess the City Transport Network in the intro. So I'm going to play the intro clip. I don't know where it's from. Again, got it for free online. And then we'll get started with our guest today on All in This Together. I really like the bit in that clip where you watch the person run for that tram and hopefully catch it. Today's guest is someone I'm really excited to have, someone I consider a friend and also an absolutely brilliant photographer. So in a second, I am going to click a button and he is going to magically appear. And here he is, today's guest, Luke. Luke, do you want to introduce yourself and your relationship to transport?
Yeah, hi, I'm Luke. I'm known online as the TubeMapper, and I have a project where basically I'm capturing photography at every station stop on the London Underground tube map. So trams, DLR, everything's there for the taking, even the cable cars, which I actually enjoy more than I should really. But anyway,
I love the cable car.
So I'm very used to traveling on London transport. It's funny because although I am a full-fledged enthusiast, I've got books, I do yearly calendars. I'm not I don't have the deepest level of knowledge. So if you've done if there was a sort of London Underground quiz, I reckon I'm gonna get a D grade. No, maybe C. Let's not put let's just
I
put
think
myself down.
I think from talking to you previously, you know more than you admit to about the
I know
underground. You
more than
kind of
I know
it
more than the
seeps
average
in.
person, but
Yeah.
less but I'd say I'm a C grade geek.
I mean, that's the thing that I've wanted to do with this podcast though. It's about people who love transport but not necessarily are engineers or have all the knowledge about it. So, yes, I mean your photography is wonderful and it's a different exciting way to engage with transport. Now you've been on my other podcast, Round Around We Go, before. And one of the things I loved talking to you about was you had these stories of times you were trying to photograph different things or sitting around in stations waiting for things to happen, because I know your photography is so wonderfully kind of based on symmetry or based on just capturing the right moment. So I'm curious, do you have any stories about your experience going around the tube map photographing things that you think you'd like to share?
Um, okay, let me see. So yeah, so obviously I don't consider myself as a normal user of the underground anymore because um, some of my photos are quite bizarre or interesting or focusing on weird aspects of stations. I've had interesting experiences. So the first thing that popped into my head when you asked that question was there um, I like sci-fi and comic books and all of that stuff, and I
Mhm.
always enjoy photographing people in cosplay interacting with stations, especially
Mhm.
if the station has sort of relevance to a location. So, for example, Spider-Man was filmed in Tower Hill, Tower Bridge, something. I don't know which one. And but there was like a Spider-Man cosplay meetup happening at Tower Bridge,
I
and
didn't know that was a thing, but that's amazing.
yeah, well, there was. There's loads. This is what I mean. There's so many pockets of geekery. It's
I
fantastic.
know.
But anyway, and I didn't really know, but I followed this guy called Nottingham Spidey or Not Spidey, which is quite funny.
Mhm.
And he was meeting up with I think 6 or 7 other. Actually, I think it was more other Spider-Men at Tower Gateway Station, and so I just somehow became aware of this, and then I said, "You know what? Can I intercept you on your route to Tower Gateway? Because I would just love because I knew he was just dressed up as Spider-Man on the
Yeah.
underground, and I just thought it'd be hilarious just to see what it would be like." And I can tell you, Emily, I've never seen anything like it. Well, I've seen something else like it. I'll tell you a bit later. But this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. I met up with him. He was Spider-Man. I took a lovely picture of him in Sloane Square because in Sloane Square you've got these blue tiles, these sort of
Mhm.
royal blue tiles, and that was a nice contrast to the sort of blue scales of the Spider-Man costume. So that's why I took a
Yeah.
picture of him there. And then we went on a train. But the moment we went on the train, it was like, hey Spidey, selfies, hugs, kids, um, everything. It was crazy. It was like being with an A-list celebrity. And I
Mhm.
think because Spider-Man is so loved by as a superhero, he's actually quite treasured. People quite like him. They quite like
Yeah.
the Spider-Man character. They were treating him like he was the real Spider-Man. They're going, "Hey, Spidey! Hey, Spidey!" Everyone was like shouting out his name. And I think the thing that made me lose it, when I just started crying with laughter, was this random guy came up to him and just asked him for directions on the underground. I just lost it. I just was like, "Can't you see this guy's like just dressed up as Spider-Man?" I just couldn't believe it. And yeah, and then we went to Tower Gateway, and we took some. We met up with about eight or nine different Spider-Men, and we got a love. I got a lovely picture of them exiting the ticket gates, which looks great.
Mhm.
And then the station staff all loved it. They thought it was hilarious. Um, yeah, it was just really fun. It was really fun. The way that um, having something alien in something that's quite normal transforms people's reaction. And as much as Londoners enjoy not talking or looking at each other,
Yeah.
it's quite a skill to acquire as a Londoner. It's quite hard to avoid eye contact from someone who's this close to you, but we can do it
Yeah.
as Londoners.
Yeah, yeah, we manage it.
No, we're experts at it. It's amazing. But the moment there's something that breaks that, so be a cute animal or someone in cosplay, the whole carriage erupts into conversation, and you just get this strange thing, and everyone's like relaxed, and it's really fun to see like the underground carriage burst to life, full of conversation. And so yeah, so that was a very memorable and funny experience.
That's really interesting because I think it's interesting how it's Spider-Man that seems to do that to people. And, if you need directions, you kind of look around the carriage going, "Who am I gonna talk to? Who is the person I trust?" And it's really funny that they chose like, "Oh, yeah, the guy in the Spider-Man, he's gonna help me. He's a superhero. Why not?" I love that.
He's also the colours of the London Underground logo.
He is. He is, yeah. It's interesting because I just had the Lego, fall off the webcam. It's interesting because I was once on an underground carriage with a, woman. I think she was going to some kind of environmental protest, and she basically had an entire, almost Queen Elizabeth-like dress made out of recycled materials.
Oh
And it was
wow.
interesting because it wasn't like it was a recognizable figure like Spider-Man, where people would go, "Oh, it's Spider-Man, that's fun." And it was interesting how some Londoners just were like, nope, I'm not engaging with this. There was a person dressed as a like chocolate bar wrapper, Queen Elizabeth, whatever. But when kids started engaging, then more people were like, that's a really amazing costume. Where did you make it and stuff? And I like that kind of, you had to get someone to break that barrier to get that kind of
Oh yeah,
warmth
it's
to it.
exceptionally hard. So people just don't. I once had my friend Andrea dressed up as a nun at Nunhead Station, and which was hilarious, by the way. It was so funny. But like, there was no one even batted an eyelid. People just walked straight past us. I thought it was hilarious. Great photos, but yeah, it was yeah. That's the thing about London. I suppose elsewhere people will say, "Excuse me, what are you doing? What are you doing?" But yeah, the people don't do that here. They're just like, it's a sort. It's they probably just think, it's probably an Instagrammer. That's
Yeah, yeah.
probably a YouTuber doing their YouTube
Probably
stuff.
someone filming a video for, yeah. And the other thing is, one thing I always notice in London, I see queues all the time for random things. And in Covent Garden the other day, there was this huge queue for some kind of Mew Mew pop-up thing. And I'm always like, I could ask these people what they're queuing for, but no, I'll like walk the entire length of the queue to find the front to be like, what are these people queuing for? I'm like, no one will engage with anything odd going on. They're just like, I can figure this out myself or I will ignore it. It's quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that story. You said you had another time where that you got that reaction though. Where you saw
Recently, very similar, but different. So I've on the same theme of sort of animals, sort of making people perk up. So it's normally dogs. So when you go in the underground, there's a dog, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at your dog! Oh, it's really nice." And I've got this game where I'd like to try to guess breeds of dogs, which is actually more difficult than you think because there's so many
Mhm.
crossbreeds these days. But anyway, I've met couple of cats on the underground. It's rare, but it happens. So one of them is a very infamous or maybe famous now cat called Sigrid. Sigrid's got a book, believe it or not. Sigrid travels around with her friend Travis, who cycles her around in a carriage, and they go around massive, and like the massive. Anyway, they went on the underground, and so yeah, people always say, "Oh, can I intercept you on the underground?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, why not? If you're available." So that was like people's reaction to that was like, "Whoa, there's a cat! This is crazy." But then later on, there's another guy called Mohammed who has a number of cats, and he's like He's a cat trainer, which sounds like an oxymoron.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing you could do. I guess they need them for films and things like that, but
Yeah,
I thought they were famously like
they
untrainable
are.
animals.
Yeah, they are. They really are.
Well, good job,
The moment
Mohammed.
I
I'm
say,
impressed. I'm impressed with
I
that job.
love writing. I love saying the word and writing down cat trainer because people are like, no, that's not a thing. And then and they're, also, and they're like, yeah, that makes no sense whatsoever. What you're saying is ludicrous. But anyway, he's a cat trainer and he travels around with his cats. And I met up with him as he was going somewhere, and he had his cats out in a train, and and seriously, I've never seen anything like it. It was so the last time, as I said, it was kids and grown-ups, but this there were two ladies who spotted the cats, and they just lost it. They were like pretty much crying, stroking these cats. It became sort of like this cat therapy carriage, um, and see, I wish I filmed it because
How
it was
many
it was
cats were there?
three of them. So
Okay,
he had
I was
like a
picturing at first I was picturing like 8 cats, like it was completely taking over. Okay, 3 seems like a more reasonable number.
Yeah, no, because he travelled. I think he normally has one out, and he was taking the other two somewhere. But then they were all curious, so they all came out. And he's got leads, and so it's all sort of like safe. And I think the
Mhm.
rules are quite weird on like London transport. I think it's something like as long as your animal's controlled, you can take any animal on the underground. As far as I know, like I think the most rare animal I've seen is a bunch of canaries on someone's shoulder.
Oh, wow.
But Yeah, but anyway, the cat carriage was hilarious, and so people missed their stop. They were just stroking the cats. It seriously turned into this cat therapy session. Um, and it's funny, I suppose, without the allergy issue, I
Mhm.
reckon it would be quite a big thing to have like a sort of animal therapy trade, because there's so many people that respond well to it. Like, I mean, I'm kind of indifferent to animals. I like them. A lot, but I'd rather not own one. I had a cat for ages,
Mhm.
which was hard work because she was, like, getting old and stuff, and she was lovely,
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
like,
yeah, of course.
but, yeah, it was just funny to see as again, something alien in a familiar, uh, situation, and all of a sudden the whole carriage was talking again, but as I said, this time it was, like, really heightened emotion of joy, as they were stroking these cats. It was pretty funny, pretty funny.
That's that's amazing. I love that. A colleague was saying the other day she saw a cat on, the Underground, but it was a cat that had wandered on in a station and then just got on the train, and I was like, "I don't know how the Underground deals with that." Like, if it gets on at Harrow and suddenly it's at Aldgate, what's the hopefully that cat found its way home, but,
Well, if it's got a
yeah.
collar, it should be chipped,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, and it's
you
chipped,
can just
yeah.
hand it into the local vets, and then hopefully they can source who the owner is.
It's a fun
Um,
job that's a fun job for whoever works at whatever station the cat winds up at to try to get the cat, bring it somewhere, but,
yeah,
yeah,
I remember there was some story of some cat that was trapped on the ground that had been spotted, and then they had to go and rescue it. So it does happen. I can't remember the name, what cat it was, but it was found and then rehomed. So yeah,
that's
it
good,
does
yeah,
happen.
I hope that cat made its way home. It was making me think because, Paul, my partner, owns a pet chinchilla, so, like, for
Of
those who don't know what
course,
a chinchilla is, they're very cute, big, fluffy, like a rat, but twice as fluffy, um and
hamster rat.
she's incredibly old, so we have to take her to the vet a lot, and we take her to, like, this boarding place when we go out of town, and because she's in a cage, we take her on the tube, but because she's in a cage, people can just sort of see this little thing moving around in the cage under the seat, and there will be people who, like, look down and then look up and smile at you and look down, but it's very rare someone asks, and it's almost always a child, "What is that?" or "What's your pet in there?" They'll just be like looking down, just, they're kind of trying to suss out the situation, and oftentimes they'll smile at you, like, they're excited about it, and it's a nice thing, but it's kind of that's as far as people will go for breaking the wall between you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
no,
it.
it's true. It's good.
I love the guy bringing 3 cats on the tube, that's amazing.
People do weird things on people. Yeah, people. I mean, you have the general, people rushing to work. But then it's people use it more casually. The underground, they're just
Mhm.
getting from A to B, but they're in no rush. So once you go out of those rush, the rush hour period, it sort of quietens down a bit, and it becomes a bit more nuanced and interesting. Um,
Yeah, I love traveling on the
I'm a bit too
underground.
old now I've never been on a night tube. That must be an interesting experience. I'm probably a bit too old for it. Have you experienced that?
Maybe once, but yeah, you're right. I my days oh, no, I have been on the night tube, but it's when I was riding every bus in London and I was trying to get all the night buses. So,
Ah, yeah.
for sort of basically safety purposes, I would do it on the weekend, and then if I had to go to a station that was a bit further out because it wasn't basically, I just, like, go up and down Oxford Street and catch all the buses because I didn't wanna go very far out. But if I had to go a bit further out, I'd make sure I could go on the night tube and get back. Yeah, I've only done it on I was trying to catch all the night buses, and it was that week I had like, I think that the day before I'd broken up with my boyfriend, and I was, like, so sad on this night tube after catching all these buses, and I looked so awful and wrecked, but I did it, I got all the night buses, so I achieved that dream, and I was like, "I don't care, I need to catch these buses, and then I'll get the night tube home. But yeah, that's the only time I've done it. I haven't done it on like a drunken night out, get on the night tube home, but I bet that's night buses are always a good vibe. So and by good I
It sounds
mean
like the beginning
questionable.
of it does sound like the beginning of some sort of film or novel, sort of depressed on a night bus. It's like the night tube, going home late at night just after breaking up. So I'm not making joyful
No,
jibes of your
it's quite
situation.
all right. It's a long time ago. But it was just really funny. I was like, it was I was off that week, so I was like, I gotta get all the buses now. I'm it's nearly the end of the year. I'm trying to catch them in. And I was like, I don't care. I won't think about my emotions. I will just ride buses. Uh,
But yeah, it's and I suppose like there are different experiences. So there are stations that have their own vibe. So you'll have the vibe during the night bus. You have football stations. So you have the stations
mm.
that have to. So I haven't photographed that. That's something I want to capture. Sort of
I
the.
love at Arsenal when they open the little weird side gate thing that they only open when the games are on. That's quite fun. Arsenal is my favorite station, so I'm like,
Oh,
yeah.
is it? Mm.
Yeah, I love the
What
thing I
color are
love
those
about
tiles? What color are those tiles? What would you call them?
I often say like a blackish green or like it's a weird you can look at those for a long time and not be able to pinpoint it, which is the thing I like about it. I like th What I like about Arsenal, I think, is that I lived not too far from it during lockdown, and every day I'd cycle past it, and I'd watch the seasons change in front of the station, and I love that it is just like Victorian house, Victorian house, Victorian house. It's just terraced houses, and then suddenly Arsenal Station, and then more terraced houses. There's nowhere else on the underground that feels like it's just another terraced house. Um, so I like that, and I just like the design and the fact there's a really long slope because there was no escalator in it or lift in it. But yeah, it's the football ones are an interesting one, and also so because I live near Seven Sisters, the football fans are one thing, and then they'll have like they had the Beyonce concert there, so you get an entire different vibe crowd coming out. I love the mix of crowds there.
Yeah, just having the underground, having to deal with like the different types of people. Like when I was in my 20s, I worked. I suppose that's my link to cosplayers. In my 20s, I worked next to the Excel Center, and so that's where
Mhm,
they have like the big Comic Con events. And to be
mhm.
honest, the Comic Con wasn't really a thing here in this country for a long time. It was big in America, but I think only I think it's only been big for about 20 years here, if that. Now it's normal to see cosplayers, but back then it was quite a rare sight, people sort of dressing up um, as anime characters and stuff. And anime was even sort of more underground there as well, because
Mhm.
obviously television was consumed very differently than it is now.
Yeah, of
You
course.
have to buy videos to sort of watch anime. You wouldn't be able to. There was no such thing as streaming, really. So yeah, no, it's just it's I but it's always it always puts a smile on my face when you just see a group of Doctor Who's sat on a train or a group of you know. And so yes, that's one thing that I like to capture. As you said, I do spend time capturing symmetry or interesting architectural spots on the underground. But and I don't really focus on people, so
Mhm.
I don't know whether I would class myself as a street photographer. It's hard actually to say what I would say I
Street
am.
photographer is a very trendy thing at the moment, but you're not a street photographer. You're not you're underneath the streets photographing.
That's clever. I like that. I like that. I'm gonna delve deep into your metaphor of under the street photography. That's quite nice.
I like it.
I like that. I'll say that next time online, see what people think.
Um, so any other experiences that stick out to you on taking photos or just, other transport
I
related
would say,
experience?
I would say, um, I have a memory of when I was a kid. It is very loose, so this story will probably like break in break. all the threads will fall out of it as I start speaking about it. But it's more of a loose memory of my first time on a Docklands Light Railway,
Yeah.
and the Docklands Light Railway is my favourite line on the underground by a huge margin for loads of
Yeah.
reasons. Mainly because I can pretend to be a driver. But
Obviously,
then
that's everyone's favorite thing about the DLR.
also, it's actually surprisingly quite reliable.
Mhm.
When the weather's bad, it's generally working, which is quite interesting considering it's outside. So even when it's windy, it's generally working. So it's quite bizarre. But yeah, the Doctors Light Rail seems to be very reliable, and then also it's picturesque. You've got the nice views of the sort of Canary Wharf um,
Mhm.
and the city. And so my memories being in primary school and getting on the I can't remember the route because the teachers took us, but I assume that we got on the East London line, which it was called, and I still call it
Yeah.
that. I know it's going to be called something. What's it called now? I should know this.
It's the Windrush one, isn't it? Yeah,
It's a Wind
it's gonna be
Rush.
the
Yeah,
Windrush line.
yeah. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate the Wind Rush, obviously,
Yeah.
but I'm going to call it the East London line in my heart because
I
I
think a
still
lot of
remember.
people are. I mean, I think
But
I think again, we were just saying before we started recording that we didn't wanna get too political, but I think,
no, it's not political.
detangling. I know it's
It's
not.
not political because it's only those stations. So once I go
Yeah.
past I think was it five stops? I think New Cross, Surrey Quays, or Surrey Docks, Carolina the Water, Rotherhithe, Wapping, and Whitechapel, and that's
Yeah.
it. I think it was just those lines, and so once I go beyond then it's the Windrush line. So it's
Yeah.
just the memory of
No, I get that, but I think lots of people are gonna do
this.
that. I don't think people are gonna stop calling the Goblin line because when it becomes a suffragette line, people are just used to that. But yeah, sorry, carry on your childhood story. We've gotten on a
Yeah, no, but
line
I just
name.
remember, as I said, it's only a loose memory. There's no big climax to it. I just remember the first time, um, just traveling on the underground, which itself was quite interesting because you didn't know where you're going, and you're like, oh, you got all these smells and sounds and stuff, and then
Mhm,
suddenly getting a Docklands Light Railway, which then opened up into the air, and so that was like, whoa, what's happening here? This is like feels a bit like underground, feels a bit like the train. What's going on? And then we arrive in Canary Wharf, and I just remember looking up at the tall buildings, and there weren't as many sort of skyscrapers then, and it was just
mhm.
like, "Whoa, we're in America." I was thinking as a sort of kid, and so my first sort of memory of the Docklands Light Railway is linked to Canary Wharf. So
Yeah.
I think Canary Wharf is the Docklands Light Railway in my head. That's how I
Mhm.
think. And so that's probably why I like all the sort of views looking towards the city. So from sort of Custom House going back, there's great views from Royal Victoria, from East India, from uh, I can't remember all the stations, but there's so many, and they're just
I
of the city,
DLR, I
of the
can never remember.
well, I do. If I sit down and think about it, I know all the views. That's what I mean. I'm very geeky when it comes to views and
Yeah.
colors and tiles and stuff. So I can normally remember it then. But yeah, I love the views. So I think I love the sort of juxtaposition of architecture, transport, and scenery. I think
Mhm,
that's the winner for me, and I think that's why the Docklands Light Railway is by far my favorite because you've got so many things. I think the only thing that's almost as fun as that is, I think last year I started taking pictures of the tram line,
mhm.
which is interesting. But my favorite part of that is I think there's two stops, which is Church Street and George Street, and they're
Mhm.
like just in the middle of they're literally in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
and and you can just sort of walk across them. They are. I think when you get to Croydon Station and West Croydon Station, there's a platform, so they feel more separate. But in George Street and Church Street, they feel like they're part of the city. So it feels like the station is more incorporated into the landscape. And so people are just the hustle and bustle of the trams going through and people just walking across the track and behind it where they shouldn't, and bikes going the wrong way up the road. And I think there's something about that feels quite interesting and powerful, especially visually. So it's a nice place to take photos.
Yeah.
Where
All
was I?
right.
What was
So
I talking about?
yeah, sorry to jump out there, having a mic malfunction. But yeah, I agree with you that I really like those tram stops that have the kind of, yeah, they just feel like they're right in the middle of everything. I know where Church Street is, and it feels like it just, they feel like that nice kind of mix between a bus and a train in a
Yes.
way. You just feel they feel really part
Yes.
of the city.
Yeah. It's where a sort of the tram becomes a bus and a train simultaneously, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think yeah, the hybrid feel of that vehicle is powerful in those stops. Whereas I think as you sort of get further down the line, it just feels like a train,
Mhm.
rather than or a light
Yeah, 'cause it
rail.
took over
But
old train lines, so it is
yeah,
really just running like a train, but
yeah, it feels like
yeah.
light rail. But when you're in those s- in the sort of the main heart of Croydon, it
Mhm.
feels it becomes part of the sort of infrastructure, and it feels quite special. So yeah, I definitely do have more photos to take there. I could actually do a whole project there, to be honest, just being in Croydon.
Just
Which is funny because loads of people are like, "What, really, in Croydon? Yeah, 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 yes, in Croydon, yes."
I think this it's the first time I went to Croydon, like the sort of business district of Croydon, I was like, "What?" It reminded me of like parts of Canadian cities that were just a bit kind of old and run down. But the more I wandered around there, the more I got to like it. There's kind of an interesting vibe around there. And I think there's so much to celebrate in different places. I mean, it's what you're doing in your photography, but I think there is that kind of like you can always find interesting and exciting and beautiful things wherever you are.
Yeah, that's I think the when you live in a city like London, the transport infrastructure is actually I mean, we all moan about it, but it's pretty fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember chuckling to myself because and I shouldn't because it's not funny because I understand this, but I think someone missed their train and they muttered the words, "Oh no, I have to wait 5 more minutes for my train." And like, you know, comparatively, you have some people in countries who are waiting for ages, like
Well, I mean,
hours for the
it's one
train.
of the constant arguments that if I'm like, "Oh, the bus is delayed," or whatever, people are like, "Well, I only get 1 bus a day where I live." I mean, we are so lucky. I mean, I live on the Victoria line and I'm like, 2 minutes? I have to wait a full 2 minutes? What is
Yeah,
like,
exactly. The
if there's a
Victoria line's
more than
the
a
worst.
2-minute gap on the Victoria line, I'm like, "This is absurd. What is happening? There must be a problem."
Yeah,
So, yeah.
the frequency and the ease of traveling around is quite interesting, especially now that sort of speeds are 20 miles an hour. Like
Mhm,
you can actually beat lots of the drives that you can do around London,
mhm,
and I tend not to drive because of that. Because I can just sort of go around using the transport, and because the trans London transport has such a sort of design rule of keeping things looking similar or
mhm.
a nod to the past as such. There's a sort of that you have this timeless feel of
Yeah.
traveling around London, and I think that's why it's such an iconic landmark, I guess, of London. People come around for miles. It's not just the tube geeks that love the London Underground. It's historians, it's tourists,
Yeah.
it's everyone. And also, we have memories. We go back to the station. It's like, oh my goodness, this is exactly how it was when I was
Yeah.
here last.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that really, I think, when you meet people who used to live in London and come back, it really
Oh
takes
yeah,
them back immediately when they're on the underground, and it's one of the things with Round Around We Go, we've got people who listen to that who had no interest in transport, but just like the history or the social element,
yeah.
just bringing it all together is really fascinating. I guess that leads me to my one of my final questions, which is what is your favorite form of transport? You said the DLR, so I don't know if it's light railways generally or it's
Yeah, so it would on the in London transport it would be the DLR. As a joke, I do enjoy the Emirates airline but for me to not Emirates, it's
It's
IFS.
IFS Cloud, isn't
I'm
it?
sorry, IFS. Am I doing advertising now?
I'll get
I think I
sponsored
did
by them, and then
advertising.
we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sponsored by IFS. I should yeah. We should reach out. You never know. But yeah, yeah, I like the airline cable cars. The thing about that is that I wish it was like 4 stops or something.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Like, you know,
I'm
just like
obsessed with kind of useful cable cars. Like, I know there are some places in Colombia, for example, that do have actual commuter cable cars, and I'm like, "Yeah, it would be so cool if it went, like, there and then into Canary Wharf," and I'm not sure the people who live in
yeah,
those
just a
towers
bit
would be that
further. Like,
excited about people sliding past their windows being like, "Hi, hi." But
I know
yeah.
it's a lot of fun. Like I did a sort of photography project for TFL, and I spent the day on the cable cars. It was so
Mhm.
weird. It's so weird. It's so nice. I really enjoyed it. I just went round. So yeah, I've probably been round more than most people, and yeah, it was just incredible. I was like, yeah, this is be so good if you could go around London like that. And also, the cable cars, in my opinion, is one of the best places in the whole of London to watch the sunset
Yeah. It's a
because
it's a great place. If it was connecting to somewhere slightly more useful, it would be really wonderful. I mean, one of the reasons it was built is because if the Jubilee line went down, people couldn't get out of Canary or not Canary Wharf, sorry, couldn't get out of North Greenwich, which is totally fair. But, like, putting them to a long walk from a DLR station is not that long of a walk, but a bit of a walk from one DLR station isn't that useful. I just want it to properly connect to Canary Wharf. But yeah, I would I was reading about the development of Battersea Power Station. Someone had given a talk about it, and they'd looked at a lot of different options for what kind of transport connection they were going to make to Battersea Power Station. And one of them was apparently a cable car. And I was
Oh
like,
my.
why didn't that happen? I just want all
Oh
of them. I want
my.
all the cable
Oh,
cars.
the
But
logistics for that would have been a nightmare. Could you imagine? But there is like, yeah, no, I could see it would fit there. It would
could
fit
you
there
imagine
visually.
it goes through the
Yeah,
power station
yeah,
stack
yeah,
just coming through from Victoria or something? It's the
yeah.
dream. I dream
What,
about
you go
more
right
cable
to the
cars
top
going
of
through.
one of the chimney stacks
Yeah.
in the power station, you come down.
Yeah, that lift thing that you can go in, you could go up there, get on the cable car. We should plan all the transport for London, Luke. We should just and it should all be cable cars.
Oh, no, if seriously, like, it would be a visual dream and a commuter's nightmare. Could you It's like, why have we gone all around this building when we could have just gone straight through? Oh, because the views. But you've added, like, 10 minutes to our journey now. Yeah,
This
so
is what
no,
I love
I get
about buses because you get the actual views, and they may take ages, but there's and so be so roundabout, but you get those views in a way that efficiency of the tube doesn't get you.
yeah, I guess so. What's the, bus route that they all say tourists should get on? I think you're probably the
Um,
person to ask that.
there's a few different ones. My recommendation would be the 139. I used to live in West Hampstead on the 139 and work at Waterloo, which at the time it was West Hampstead to Waterloo, so it was the ideal bus route. But it goes down like through Abbey Road. It has to stop for all the tourists at the Abbey Road crossing. Then it
Yeah.
goes down via Baker Street and
Oh,
Oxford
wow.
Street, Piccadilly Circus, and then over Waterloo Bridge. But there's a few others that people recommend for tourists, depending on what people want to see. Because yeah, there's more that go over by via South Ken and things like that. But I once remember being on the 139 late for work because we were delayed on Oxford Street, and there was an Italian family who filmed the entire hour we were stuck on Oxford Street, and they were so excited the whole time. I obviously don't know what they were saying, but they sounded like they were like, "Look over there, look over there, look over there, look over there," and I was like, it's nice that these people are so excited about being stuck on Oxford Street for an hour because I would really just like to get to work and not be late. But yeah, it is you do get really amazing views of different parts of London from the buses. I guess that leads me
Yeah.
on to my next question. If you could do anything to improve transport in London, UK, wherever you want, just improving transport generally, what would it be? And it doesn't need to be a like serious things that will help commuters answer. It can be just something fun.
Ah, that is interesting, isn't it? And that puts me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, the parent in me goes to a more serious thing, which is like, yes,
Go for a serious. I've
discounts
said
for
to everyone,
regular.
you know, like you could have free candy floss on trains, and they're like, I think what we should do is build HS2. You know, like you can
Yeah,
be
no, but
serious. You're welcome to be serious.
no, the parent in me is like ridiculous. Like it just means that things like I'm a South Londoner, so I want a Bakerloo line to come down
Mhm.
into South London, which has been proposed to do for yonks. And there's no reason
Since it
for
was
it
built.
to. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty. That's what I mean. It's not even. It's a joke now. Like it should just be there.
Yeah.
And I understand all the difficulties with all of these things. But yeah, I've there's loads of views. I think our transport in general is actually pretty good. We moan about it, but it's pretty good. I think because London is a growing city, it should be expanded. They should make the efforts to expand it. There's been
Mhm.
projects like Battersea Power Station, as you mentioned, the Nine Elms, where basically developers have pretty much paid for the extensions of the
Mhm.
railway lines because by building a railway line, you're almost guaranteeing. Well, for them, it puts up the price of their properties, but
Yeah, of course.
but it's also useful in terms of a way of funding something that's very expensive to do these days. I don't know if
Mhm.
the techniques cost more or it's just harder to do, but I'm not the technical person to talk about. As I said, if you and I built the underground, you'd have like some special lollipop stops. You'd have like some flying loop the loop Docklands Light Railway Showcase or something,
Yeah, I
which
would
would
replace half the bridges in London with cable cars and maybe a roller coaster. A roller coaster would be great as well.
exactly. So you and I to keep us away from any kind of planning ideas of undergrad because it'd be useless. But in terms of just functionality, making sure more people can use it, somehow keeping price down, especially for
Mhm.
younger people and
Yeah.
older people, I guess. And it's just all of those things. I think. As I said, very boring answer.
No,
But when it
but
comes when it comes to that kind of thing.
I do appreciate the boring answers too, because I think there are things, you know, like things that Scotland are doing about making travel better for young people and cheaper for young people. I think there's lots to learn from other places in London,
What's
but
Scotland doing?
obviously they do. I don't know the exact details, but there's basically an under 25 travel card where you get, I don't know if it's free travel or very discounted travel. I can't remember the They also got rid of peak fares, which I know London trial doing on Fridays to try to get more people, you know, traveling on Fridays and things. I think there's I mean, London has very unique challenges compared to anyone where else in the country, but also everywhere else in the country needs better so it's kind of this horrible balancing act. But yeah, I agree. There's a lot that can be done in sort of a practical way to make. All right, mic back. Hopefully it'll last for the last few minutes we have to record. Um, I just want to say a huge thank you, Luke. It's been really fun to talk to you and
Thanks.
all your wild experiences with Spider-Man and cats and all the other kind of. Um, I know you've got a new book coming out. Plug anything you like. Plug anything you wanna share with people.
Plug time. Okay. So I've got a new book coming out in November. It's currently on pre-order. I think the pre-order offers run out at the end of July or something like that. I know, or mid-July. But if you miss the pre-order offers, you can always pre-order it on Amazon. The book's called Contrast. It compares contrasting themes such as daylight, light, overground, and futuristic and timeless. It's just a play on elements of the different scenes that you see on the underground, how you can sometimes feel like you're in a spaceship and then sometimes feel like you're time traveling. So that was the idea of that book. And yeah, that's out in November. I do yearly calendars. I have a Patreon. I'm pretty much on most social networks. So yeah, TubeMapper. Just type in TubeMapper and you'll find me.
Oh,
I'm almost giving up on this microphone. I'm giving up on the microphone. It's going to go through the other microphone. I just want to say a big thank you. It's really wonderful to have you again. And yeah, I look forward to the new book.
Awesome.
I love Luke's stories and Luke's positivity about transport. I know very London centric. If you're not a Londoner, I promise we won't all be London centric. I want to get people from around the UK, but also from around the world on the podcast. Thank you so much for listening and or watching. If you enjoyed this podcast, like, subscribe, rate, review, all the things you can do to make sure other people find the podcast. This is released fortnightly on Mondays. I'm Emily Turner. You can find me on what used to be Twitter at ET Right Home and Substack at ET Right Home. I try to publish a piece, usually about transport, sometimes about other things, every Sunday. You can also find me on Emily Takes the Bus on Instagram and TikTok. I'm trying to make more content there. I've got some ideas I was just discussing off screen with Luke to put on there, and he has some other exciting projects coming up that I'm looking forward to seeing more of. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next week.